evening, viewers. India is set to start the trials of 5G internet technology to introduce the next generation of wireless networks. Now, essentially, what is this 5G that we are looking at? Well, experts say this is an enhanced, a better version of mobile broadband network that will be introduced in our country. In many parts of the world, it's already been initiated in 2019. We are running a little behind schedule, behind what we had ourselves intended to do. The network capacity, which is how many of the users can be brought on, is actually a lot more than what we have seen with 4G. It's 10 times faster than 4G. It could actually be more. Some estimates say almost 100 times. So the numbers there vary, 10 to 100 times, but much, much faster than our 4G services. Experts say it will also help with a better virtual reality, augmented reality kind of experience. So those kind of apps, those devices will become more in use and will see a widespread use. Also, artificial intelligence linked technology will be enabled better. So there are many, many benefits and purposes that we look at as the world of 5G enters our world. But the Indian government has run into a controversy already after it announced the plan for 5G trial. And that is because they said, the government said, that the 5G trials will be open to everybody. Now, the interpretation of that is that it will also allow the Chinese-based telecom major Huawei to participate in these 5G trials. And there's a lot of criticism going on across the world for this Chinese company, which is why now many in India are also raising a question. Who's Huawei? Let's start with that. It's a Chinese electronic and telecom equipment company. It's actually world's second largest smartphone manufacturer. The founder of this company is a member of the Communist Party of China. Huawei in our country is present in a big way, even in India already. They partner with big telecom companies. They provide them services and technology. In fact, for 4G, when you talk about 4G, Huawei is actually one of the major suppliers of the 4G technology in our country already. They have a big setup for R&D also in Bengaluru. Why this fuss surrounding a company, you ask? Well, here is why people are worried. And this is the security controversy. This company, viewers, is already blacklisted by United States for what they say, national security concern. US, in fact, has not just banned this company and blacklisted it, they are now also lobbying with other countries, including India, to ban this Chinese company. Of course, Huawei on its own has denied all the allegations and all the charges that have been made by United States about security concerns. New Zealand and Australia are two nations who have already blocked Huawei for their 5G rollout. In India now, we are saying it will be allowed to participate. Many of the European countries are also now looking at the possible concerns and threats and what they want to do. Hence, there are some concerns here in India. So our question is very simple. While China may be hailing Indian government's move in allowing Huawei to participate in 5G trials, is there really a concern? Is this company, a Chinese company, a security threat for our nation? Will it effectively mean that somebody via this company can spy on us? Remember, these are the telecom services, communication services that we are talking about. Can it be misused for surveillance? Do we know enough for that? Let's try and understand and say good evening to our panelists this evening to really explain this picture to us. Narendra Taneja, National Spokesman for the BJP, Ashwini Mahajan, National Co-Convener for the Swadeshi Jagran Manch. Swadeshi Jagran Manch is actually one of those associations that has raised an objection. Ravi Vishwesharya Sharda Prasad, a telecom consultant and founder of a think tank on information warfare. Dominic Karunesudas, technology entrepreneur. And Vimal Vaklu, former chairman and MD of Telecommunications Consultant India Limited, or TCIL, as it is known at. Let me actually start with Mr. Ravi Vishwesharya. Mr. Ravi, if you can explain to us, what is this security concern? What exactly will this company be doing if it does partner with any of our telecom companies for 5G?
The controversies over Huawei having trapdoors or backdoors have been going on in several countries since the 1990s. right from the time that they got started in the West. And most of the concerns have been raised by the British government, where Huawei is one of the major vendors for most of the British telecom operators since the 1990s. The British intelligence agency GCHQ, the General Communications Headquarters, has a laboratory exclusively devoted to Huawei equipment, where they take apart every single piece of Huawei hardware. They examine all the Huawei software line by line. And over the years, they found various security threats, uh, rather kind of suspicions that do not match up to the security standards. But on the other hand, they have not found any real evidence that information is being sent back to China. We also have had a problem in looking at Huawei equipment in India, because Huawei is one of the largest vendors in India for 3G and 4G equipment. And there were some equipment that we looked at, the operators had, where there were a lot of suspicious things going on, but we couldn't really find out exactly what they were. For instance, there is a call setup network. Now, typically a call handover takes about 50 milliseconds. That's about 1/20th of a second. But in terms, we found that on some of the Huawei equipment, sometimes the call network would take almost a second, which is 20 to 50 times the amount of time it really should take. This is suspicious behavior, but it's not conclusive proof of espionage. Then again, there is a call setup network on which typically just a few kilobytes of unencrypted data travel. And we found hundreds of megabytes of encrypted data traveling on this. We could not figure out what was in that encrypted data, where that data was going to. So again, very suspicious behavior, but we were not able to figure out what was going on.
Okay.
And there is a complete setup in Bangalore for testing the telecom equipment, which the government of India had set up at the Indian Institute of Science. And the test beds, again, Huawei offered their equipment to be tested. And when you do the test equipment, only one supplier of the test equipment came forth, and that was Huawei itself. So you're going to have one branch of Huawei testify or certify another branch of Huawei, which is a very bizarre situation.
Okay. So okay, let's take it point by point.
Kinds of,
so you've listed out a lot of instances where there may not be concrete and conclusive evidence. There have been suspicions and questions raised on what was really happening. And I take your point when you say that, well, if the equipment has to be tested, it can't be the same company that's under the scanner. But let's try and understand what is it that the company does first, and then we will go across to the concerns. And, Dominic, if you can help us understand that. You're a telecom and a technology expert yourself. And especially because this company is already in our country. They're already partnering with the biggest of the names, from Vodafone to Airtel, and they're providing them the 4G equipment. Help us understand, what exactly does this Chinese company do currently in our country?
So, first and foremost, the very reason that people are talking about banning Huawei has also a lot of political connotations to it, because back in the US, you have Cisco's and Qualcomm's of the world, and they obviously need to survive, right? Huawei is by far the only company in the 5G ecosystem who offers end-to-end 5G solutions, from chipsets to devices, right? So you have one single vendor who offers variety of requirements based on every nation's requirements, right? Banning them will not help much, because in terms of research, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of cost factors, in terms of other offerings, they are way ahead if you compare them vis-a-vis the other competitors such as Ericsson, Nokia, and Cisco, right? So, like you already mentioned, they already are working in the Indian telecom sector. In fact, most of the largest telecom operators are using 4G and 3G equipment from Huawei, specifically in down south, right? So banning them for 5G just because there is a security threat which also is not foolproof because based on whatever little I understand, they were offering their source code. Other vendors were not, right? So let's evaluate the source code. And if you really feel that something's fishy out there, then we can always take a call. However, if we are checking the source code of one specific company, that means we need to check the source code of other companies as well. But unfortunately, for whatever reason best known to them, they are not offering their source code, right? So it's absolutely unfair on a fair trial basis that you check one vendor's source code
Right.
and let go of the others.
Right, and you say that this Chinese company was the first one to step up and say that, well, we are ready to partner and we have the technology and the, and the systems that are required.
That is right.
But there are others, except that they're all international players. None of them are Indians, whether it's Ericsson or any other company who could provide a similar technology.
So whether it's cybersecurity, telecom, or IT, India by far as an entrepreneurial network do not focus on product development.
Right.
We are primarily services driven, right? So product development has its own shelf life. You need to invest a lot of time, energy, patience, and after maybe 5 or 6 years, you come up with a good product. And we definitely do not have a good product company, definitely not in the telecom sector that offers a 4G, 5G infrastructure sort of a setup.
Okay. So let me go across to Mr. Ashwini Mahajan.
Depend either on an Ericsson, which is from Sweden.
Yes, either which was the, I wanted to understand is that it has to be
a Samsung from South Korea, or Cisco from US.
South Korea, Sweden,
But
US
obviously
or
will be
China.
From India.
Yes, so all the options, Mr. Ashwini Mahajan, are of international companies. We are going to have to trust somebody. Why is it that, your association and your organization doesn't trust this Chinese company?
You see, I have listened to the arguments being given by other panelists. First of all, I must tell you that there is a system of evaluation and consultation at the government level, and our principal scientific advisor, under whom there is a committee to look after this, they have already suggested and recommended for excluding Huawei. This is one. So we must respect our institution making assessment, threat perceptions, and others. Number one. Secondly, I fail to agree with the other gentlemen that our companies do not have the capability. Our companies have never been given the chance to prove their capabilities, and there are companies who have got 60 patents registered with in US. Our Indian companies, they have already got patents on 60, and we had a consultation with our telecom companies, and the suggestion is that our telecom companies are not allowed. I'm trying to underline this. Our telecom companies are not allowed in China. So if our companies are not allowed, then why we should allow the Chinese companies against the interest of our company?
Okay, but they're already here. They already are providing the access, which is how you and I are using 4G.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. But there are capabilities, and I must say that our bureaucrats, they never allow. And I have number of examples where the tenders which were written were all in favor of the Chinese company, and there is a whole group of people, those who try and other people that our companies do not have the capability. Therefore, in the interest of the national security, which has already been flagged by the principal scientific advisor, and also in the interest of our telecom companies, we have suggested the government to keep Huawei, who are a national security threat, to be kept out of the 5G trial.
Okay.
This is our take.
Okay, let me get in a response. Mr. Narendra Taneja, national spokesperson for the BJP, Mr. Taneja, I apologize. We will not be able to get you live because there is a huge amount of traffic, I'm told, in our national capital today. People still celebrating New Year's, a lot of them thronging to India Gate, and our camera person is stuck somewhere. But respond to what Ashwini Mahajan is saying. He says that this company is a national security threat. Many countries have already taken action. Why should we give them access to our 5G spectrum, our communication services?
Well, there are, several people, there are many people who have kind of this view, not only in our country, across the world, in the United States, in western part of the world. I mean, people do have some reservations when it comes to Huawei, and especially, when it comes to the background, the fact that, the founder belonged to the Chinese Communist Party and so on and so forth. But that said, the government basically at this stage, the idea is to just go for, there is no final view, no final decision, but, to allow on pilot basis, that's a totally different thing. But the government, of course, extremely sensitive to the fact, that some countries and a section of, experts within India have got some reservations. So they're extremely sensitive to it. But at the same time, there are 2 points. Number one is that we have to make sure that we as a country, in terms of technology, we kind of are not left behind. Because, in the modern age, everything depends on telecom technology. And if they have something to offer, it's important we look into it very carefully and strictly in terms of technology and see that what are the benefits. Is this technology available somewhere else, or is that technology is available at home? If it is available, then of course the government will tap into it. But right now the status is that this is just a pilot project, and we are going to investigate. At the same time, we have got our own agencies which specialize on cybersecurity, specialize on security threats, and they are also include intelligence agency. So we are looking into the company and the companies, those aspects also extremely carefully, and also exchanging notes with other countries. And final view will be taken based on technology that they bring in terms of 5G, and also the perception and the perceived threats. All that will be very carefully investigated. There is absolutely no question of Indian government compromising with the country's security. Absolutely no way. But at the same time, if everything is okay and this is technology that India needs, of course, as a country, we need to go ahead.
Okay, so let me take this a step back, actually, because you're saying that obviously right now we're only looking at 5G trials. And the government after that can also decide and say, okay, we don't want this company, we don't trust it, or it doesn't have what we need, and so we will not allow this company. But what about 4G? If Huawei, a Chinese company whose founder is linked to the Chinese political party, is being accused of surveillance and spying by other nations, including United States, why should that company be currently also working with our telecom providers to provide 4G technology? Should that not be also analyzed again? Is there a threat perception there?
No, very good question. Absolutely good question. When you look at the companies which are questioning the Chinese company, they happen to be the countries, especially those countries which have got other issues too with the government of China. So we need to pay attention to that. And when it comes to technology, 4G and 5G, I don't claim to be a big expert on telecom technology, but there is a huge difference. When it comes to 5G, the reach of 5G is sharper, deeper, more comprehensive. Therefore, when it comes to, employing or acquiring technology or allowing the Chinese company in the 5G, actually risk, if there is any risk, but the perceived risk is 1,000 times more. So that is something which is being investigated. If two things are being investigated very carefully, is 5G is a kind of technology which we can use in such a way that there is absolutely no threat to our, strategic assets, our strategic industry, our security. That's being investigated thoroughly. And when we say pilot, it would include that. It's only by allowing them a pilot project that we'll be actually able to reach to the right conclusion, and conclusion based on technology and scientific conclusion. What the other countries are saying, we are listening to them, but at the same time, as we being a big country, we also being a technology power, we have to basically investigate ourselves and reach to our own conclusion. So pilot project is basically a step in that direction.
Okay, all right. Let me bring in Mr. Vimal Vaklu, former chairman and MD of TCIL. Mr. Vimal, where do you stand on this debate? Should we allow a Chinese company being accused of spying and surveillance, being tagged as a security concern elsewhere in the world? Should we allow them to be part of our 5G network?
The fact remains that we, the Indian government and even the people are even apprehensive about data misuse by Facebook and other such service providers. But we have not banned them. And even US and UK people are aware how Facebook data has been misused. But nobody has banned Facebook because it's a US-based company. I agree there is a threat perception so far as Huawei is concerned. But that does not mean that we should ban it because US is banning it or somebody else has banned it. In fact, we should have our own capability to monitor, to check malware, to ensure that things are in order. By simply buying equipment from other countries and other brands, it doesn't guarantee that they won't spy on us. So I don't think we should fall into this trap of other countries trying to dissuade us from sort of having trials from Huawei, because they have also got financial, you can say, sort of interest involved in that. They want US companies or the European companies to supply equipment to India, which is a vast country. The number of subscribers here, almost 1.3 billion, which is a big business and nobody wants to miss it.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we should, from our side, take precautions to ensure that everything is in place. We have to monitor every part of it, and then nobody will be able to take us for a ride. And it was almost a decade back that the government took a decision to set up test bed and testing of all the equipment. And there is no reason why we should not take that forward. That's my take on it.
Okay, so we should be prepared. We should any which is have our own secure systems. Why should we allow, anybody that kind of platform? But here is what I want to bring up. And if Mr. Dominic and then Mr. Ravi can come in on this. Dominic, let's begin with you. There have been multiple reports in the last 1 year that I was reading, which seem to indicate that China has already asked, all its companies, including Huawei, that they will have to share the data that they have for China's own national security or surveillance needs. Now, if Huawei has to share the data with China, then isn't that a big concern for us?
Well, so a couple of things. The government is already talking about setting up data centers here, and these are just trials right now. So it's quite obvious that even if Chinese companies bid to win this and they roll out 5G in India, it's quite possible that the data will remain in India. And like we are all discussing, these are just trials right now. And the fact still remains that Huawei is a very large player in the whole supply chain, right? So to compete with them in terms of cost and technology is by far extremely difficult. I'm not saying it's not possible, but extremely difficult. And I am quite aware of some startups and mid-sized companies within India, but they are yet to prove their capabilities in terms of 5G equipments and their enhanced quality.
Okay.
Right? And as we speak, the UK is already using Huawei equipments in non-core areas, right? Germany is already rolling it out. So I'm not saying we should replicate what others are doing. We are bound by our own security interests and our own long-term technology interest. But 5G is extremely critical technology because once we have 5G, the next big boom is going to be what we call IoT, Internet of Things, right? And India is going to be by far one of the largest users of IoT devices after China. So also it makes a lot of sense that if
so let me take
all
this
the due
point.
diligence technology-wise.
But is there a rush, Mr. Ravi, is there a rush to do this? I understand what Dominic is saying, that nobody else has the capabilities right now that Huawei does. But if we are not too sure of what other kind of capabilities they have and what the intentions may be, is there a rush to get into 5G right away?
Well, yes, because India missed the bus on 3G and 4G, and
Correct.
therefore it is very necessary for the Indian economy that 5G should be accelerated. Now, there are certain points that have to be made. The first is all equipment, all telecom equipment has to have backdoors because that is how they do the remote monitoring and remote upgradation of the software and hardware and all the analytics. So you all equipment, no matter which country it comes from, has to have a backdoor whereby the equipment manufacturer and vendor do patches, do upgrades remotely. So Cisco routers from the US also have exactly the same things, and in fact, the controversy over Cisco routers has gone on much longer than the controversy over the Huawei equipment. Secondly, there are only 5 corporations in the world who have the 5G technology. Huawei, by large, is the largest and the best. The other corporations are Nokia of Finland, Ericsson of Sweden, Samsung of South Korea, and again ZTE of China. So you're in a situation where really you're dependent on Huawei. Now Huawei offers prices. It is the most advanced technology, and they are offering prices which are 25 to one quarter or one third what the competitors are offering. They offer long-term suppliers credit, and then Huawei has already been. All the Indian telecom operators are using Huawei for 3G and 4G. So, and then for their upward compatibility, they prefer Huawei. So you have a situation where the Cellular Operators Association of India, and that's Airtel and Vodafone Idea, are strongly
Correct.
batting for Huawei. Vodafone in most of Europe is using Huawei equipment for 5G.
Correct.
And we are having situations like the UK and Germany, who again are saying leave Huawei out of the non-core parts of the network. Now,
Yes.
as a technical person, I can tell you can't really segment the switching part of it and the transmission part of it from the air interface. So Huawei is actually the only company which has a supply
You
chain.
want me to
Now, the
speak?
other thing you have to look at is that even if it
Yes.
is which is the integrated supply chain. Now, the other thing you have to look at is all the other, whether it is Ericsson or Nokia, their equipment is also manufactured in China. Even if
Right.
the corporations are owned by are European, the
Okay.
manufacturing is done in China.
Okay, so
And
I'm a little
again,
short on
at
time.
any
So,
You
point
want
of
me
Mr.
time,
to?
the
Ravi,
supply
I'm
chain can
just
be
going to,
interfered with.
yes, quickly get
Yeah.
a response from Narendra Taneja and then Ashwini Mahajan. Mr. Taneja, first to you.
No, I heard Mr. Prasad very carefully, but it's not technology we are discussing here.
Yes.
We are discussing they may have the best technology. That's not an issue. The issue is that if during the trial period we reach to the conclusion that really, the companies, as far as our security is concerned, because 5G is a different category of technology, is not safe and is a threat to our security, we are not going to compromise with it. So it's more about that. Not only the perception, the whole idea of having pilot is that so that we can draw our own conclusion based on our own trials. We are not going to go by what Germany has to say or what the US has to say, because it's not Germany which has faced the kind of situation that we had faced with China in 1962. Our problems with China are completely different. China is a fact that China is trying to contain India. China is helping Pakistan. China is creating issues and problems for us in the Indian Ocean. So we have to keep all those factors also in mind when we look at technology. Whether technology is cheap or expensive, that's not really the only factor. But what we're going to look at, if we reach to the conclusion in terms of security, there is absolutely no threat, then of course the government will go ahead.
Okay.
And at the same time, we find the economics of the whole thing is also actually attractive. So there are several questions which need to be answered.
Yes,
So a
Mr.
whole idea is to
Taneja, but
reach to
I
our
don't
own
think, I
conclusion.
take your point and you're saying the government will evaluate, we will have to wait and watch. But Mr. Ashwini Mahajan, one last point, the economics of it cannot be factored in when the concern is about our nation's security.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Because there are people those who are saying that it is economical to have 5G from Huawei. But it's very simple that if a nation doesn't remain, then what will economics do on that? In fact, these are all misleading points, because Chinese government, we have seen various tenders where the Chinese companies have given the prices which are ridiculously low, just for the reason that the Chinese government is subsidizing them to capture our strategic sectors. And all that has to be looked into. We have to investigate into the whole thing, how the Chinese companies are offering so low prices,
Right.
lower than their cost. So these are the security concerns which we must look into. And if you think that we are in so much hurry, that is again a misleading point. Because why should we hurry? Because when US, which is much ahead of us in technology, then when they can wait for 5G, why can't we? This is very simple question I'm asking.
Okay,
So
unfortunately, Mr. Mahajan, I'm out of time, but what is the hurry is what Ashwini Mahajan there of the Swadeshi Jagran Manch is saying. I'm going to thank all of our panelists for joining us. There are multiple layers to this, viewers, and one trusts that the government is going to factor all of that, but keep national security and our data privacy at the helm of it. And, not factor in and give precedence to the fact that US and China are facing off right now. US wants more countries to ban this Chinese company. Should we simply do it for that reason? The telecom companies are obviously batting for Huawei because it's the biggest technology provider. They're also the cheapest. They're giving you the best kind of technology at a cheap price. So obviously for the telecom providers, it's the best deal. Should that be the deciding factor? All of this may be factored in, but what has to be kept in mind is our system going to be foolproof enough? Is our system going to be strong enough to protect our data, to protect our privacy, and to ensure that no Chinese or any other foreign company is able to spy on us, is able to carry out surveillance on us? That remains to be the big question. Thank you so much for joining us on this special conversation.